One paradigmism, pilferers contradict their own paradigm. Doesn't stand up to sobriety index for identity. Interparadigmatic pilferers mix and match, and that creates turbulences and sometimes a lot of defensiveness about that, which means they're not secure in their choices. That's not the answer either, because of all the ways you just described that can't be mishmashed together in a blender. So what's this? That's cursing the darkness, right? Let's light a candle here. The solution is one paradigm, not several. One that you commit to whole heart and soul until you dead end in it. And a lot of times people don't know they've dead ended to it, because the thought of leaving the one paradigm that they've dead ended, if they start to get the feeling about it, usually brings on a whole lot of rupture with family and friends and community, because you're marching to the beat of a different drum, right? But the issue here is that one paradigmism, the problem with it we discussed is that you relate to it as absolute truth, as all the great religions are based on dogmas that are non-negotiable. Non-negotiable. Buddhism, the I doesn't exist except as an illusion. And no matter what dimension they teach it in, there is no negotiability to that. It is unevolvable.
Right.
And that's why these religions can't evolve. And when a religion like Baha'i comes along a bunch of decades ago, centuries ago, it attempts to be more egalitarian. But again, you're going to be like Unity Church in America is a classic paradigm pilferer. They take this from that and that from this and this from this, and they wind up being sort of empty and polite with each other. And it's I've spoken enough.
Yeah, we talked about the turbulence, but that's another aspect of it. It creates a kind of emptiness. Soullessness is a little bit of a strong word, but it's
in the right direction.
Yeah. It depletes, because I think it weakens someone the same way it weakens you when you lie.
Exactly.
When you're living a disparate set of things, you're living a lie, because it's the Frankenstein's monster is not going to have the strength of something that is whole and organic and true to itself.
Oh, great relink there. That was great how you circled back to that Frankenstein. That's exactly right.
Yeah, and it's so tricky, because the buffeting is a paradigm that is an evolution from the oppressive monoparadigmism.
Right. Monoparadigmism, yes.
I think you once said, like, monoparadigmism is a childlike form. Like, tell me what to do. I need this structure. That's a childlike orientation. The teenage orientation is, I'm going to pick and choose because I'm free and individual in my power, and I get to do whatever. Yes.
I can be a rebel.
Right.
And that's multi-paradigmism as opposed to mono.
Which is more mature, but real maturity we're offering is living according to a paradigm and facing the dead end of it, if and when it dead ends, and insisting on having something to live by that's as whole as you are.
Oh, well said. We have to learn to be sequential monogamists with our paradigms. But an important point here is the only way one paradigmism works is if the members don't hold it as absolute truth, only something to test every day for its sobriety. No absolute truth allowed. As soon as you put an absolute truth anywhere, you just created a drunken, reeling person, just came out of a paradigmatic bar. So what you've got to do here is you've got to be monogamous with your paradigm, but test it all along every time. But that requires the CT thing, critical thinking. Yeah. It requires that you embrace a paradigm and have doubt about it. Mm-hmm. If you don't embrace it and equally or deeply and passionately, and then at the same level of passion and depth, question it every day against an evolving consciousness that is meant to evolve and not stagnate in all of us. So that's why it's difficult to offer this, light this candle, one paradigmism, stick with it, which is like you said earlier, I won't argue, I won't debate paradigms. I would say, well, but I'm a Baptist Christian, and here's why this works. And I would say, stick with it. Don't. Why are you listening to me? I'm a heretic here. You don't have to listen to me. Stick with what you're with. So the idea here is you've got to have critical thinking, and critical thinking and spirituality are not easy bedfellows, to use an old ancient term, bedfellow, right? Critical thinking tends to eschew religionism and spirituality of all kinds, and turns people into agnostics or atheists. So if you're an atheist, don't listen for you probably stopped listening a while ago, although we do have some fun intellectual exercises in these podcasts you might enjoy. But stick with it until it doesn't work for you anymore. One thing about a sober paradigm is it does not seek membership. It doesn't seek followers, and it doesn't try to retain followers on either end of the spectrum. How many spiritual points of view do that? At least Buddhism doesn't recruit. Although in certain cases, there are enlightened gurus who want to retain their flock and have their way with them the way they want, and penalize you. If you penalize when they leave, then you show that you wanted to retain them. Yeah. And a lot of times that happens in certain cults that led by an enlightened person. Sure. So the idea here is identity is trying to live up to all of these definitions. I don't hold it with absolute truth. I test it every day. I'm always looking for a contradiction. But no matter what rabbit hole we go down in these podcasts that Joseph has so beautifully articulated, every rabbit hole we go down doesn't contradict this rabbit hole over here, no matter how deep we go. I've been testing it for 40 years, and other people have been testing it. Whereas I'm not maybe the smartest guy in the world, but my dedication to sobriety is rare for a paradigmatist, a paradigm giver. There's not that many real new paradigms out there. What they call paradigm shifts out there in the common world is really just reduxes of different, they're not really new. They're still holding premises and assumptions, but just articulating them in a different way, as you've said
how
before.
Alcoholics Anonymous is really a remix of Christianity, which is one of the more interesting ones.
Exactly. So
I want to insert something right here, though, because we talked a couple of times about testing paradigms, and I think it's really powerful to remind people, pretty sure we talked about this, how that's what you're already doing, consciously or not. We're all applied philosophers testing paradigms. It's just that most people don't realize they're doing it. And
or give themselves permission to do it, depending on their paradigm.
Right. But it's like when it's unconsciously done, then the test is, I'm going to live my life, and then I attract suffering, because that suffering is almost always related to a paradigmatic flawed assumption. But if you don't realize that that's the case, then you'll make up something. Well, shit happens, or, that person is bad or evil or whatever. I'm teaching a course right now, and I gave people, the subject came up, and I gave people the assignment to try to document translating the suffering they've been attracting in their life, try to translate that into what unconscious question are they asking that suffering has been an answer to.
Whoa, that is beautiful, Joseph.
And I wasn't sure if people would be able to do it, but I've seen some of the results, and they've been able to pull it off just with that frame, to look at the patterns of suffering in your life and ask yourself, what are you testing out that data is a response to? Like, what happens, for example, a really common one, what happens if I stay in a marriage where I don't really love the person? or stay in, I'm a woman and I wear the pants in the family just because I can, or, these kinds of things, which are very common. What happens if I don't actually deal with my depression and I take medication to deal with it instead? Because the suffering is the experiential answer to questions that are difficult to admit we're asking.
Difficult to admit we're asking. Boy, that really brings forward to consciousness a really brilliant way to help people process their way to an answer.
Yeah.
Well, it reminds me of the very common one we talk about a lot in the past, that staying together in a marriage for the sake of the kids.
Oh boy, yeah, there's a paradigm. There's a question that they're living into.
Only teaches kids that love is not part of a marriage. I mean, that's the solution, to keep them, show them that, because they can sense mom and dad just hate each other on some level. Kids get this without any words; they feel it.
Yeah.
So exactly that example, we get so entrained, we don't ask this very provocative kind of question that you just articulated. What's the suffering? What's it's trying to solve? What's the issue there that's trying to solve it? That's a beautiful way to get them processable to what's really going on. That the outer configuration is just a symbol of. So that's really beautiful. Did that just come to you one day?
It was in the middle of the course. I don't remember how I got into it, but it was talking about I don't know. It just sort of showed up. It was not my plan at all to end up there, and I didn't know if it would work for people, because I didn't know if how much prerequisite inner work has to be done for that to actually work. But some of the people were able to come up with some really compelling answers. It's just a reframe. What if my suffering is an answer to a question that I've been unconsciously asking? What would the question? Sort of like Jeopardy.
Well, I get it.
Here's the answer. Yeah. What's the question you're asking that's an answer to?
Wow.